Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we have Josh on Adventure Delver versus Peter on Thassa's Lash. I take it Adventure Delver is probably going to have a whole bunch of both Brazen Borrower and Bone Crusher Giant, two additions to the Legacy metagame that have a much bigger impact than they might appear to at first glance. Bone Crusher Giant actually nullifies a large amount of strategies, and I cannot imagine wanting to sleeve up lands with that in the meta. The ability to get past all the damage prevention, things like Glacial Chasm are an absolute joke when you can just dome them and proceed to attack with your creatures. I mean, it is a really interesting printing, something that's not really like the making it so damage can't be prevented isn't something you're just going to want as a single card, but tack it onto a shock and that gets interesting, and then tack it onto a 4/3 body on top of it. And it turns out to be a legacy playable card. Now, Peter on Thassa's Lash, another new improvement, really spawning a few different archetypes here, is Thassa's Oracle. Thought Lash, along with Paradigm Shift, going to combo with the card to just win the game. And it's a big ask versus a deck full of free counter spells, like Delver. At this point, typically, you're going to see Force of Will, Daze, and some number of Force and Negation, and all of those are very bad for any type of combo deck. Chalice of the Void coming down for Peter, and it looks like we might have an issue. Actually, a couple of minutes of issue there. Able to skip past it mercifully. The Force and Negation for Josh is going to look to deny this backbreaking card. That is Chalice of the Void. Peter backing it up with a Force of Will. Still has mana available. Force of Will back for Josh. Force of Will back for Peter. And if Josh is totally out of gas here, this could be a disaster. Is he getting ready to double daze? What are we seeing here? Oh, he's brainstorming in response. Interesting. Very often you see a brainstorm prior to this type of move. Making sure that you can, for example, pitch your brainstorm instead of pitching more like higher quality spells, especially given that once the Chalice comes down, the brainstorms are going to be dead. Very interesting. Bone Crusher Giant goes upstairs and is now cast, which I guess I don't know about that. It's not clear to me why you want to go upstairs. I feel like you want to just get the Bone Crusher Giant down faster. We'll see how the rest of Josh's hand plays out. Perhaps that's signaling he has some counter magic that he could actually use, maybe like a Force and Negation or something. But getting the Bone Crusher Giant down faster will do more damage. For coming across. A Brazen Borrower during the end step would be lethal. Thought Lash, and if this resolves, this is going to be very unfortunate. Daze, returning an island, and that is going to do it. Now, if it did resolve, bouncing it with Brazen Borrower, as we see there in hand, would have still been lethal, so a bit of a Hail Mary, and the card's just not lining up. But had it resolved, and had it not get bounced, Thought Lash actually does put a stop to things, as you can just prevent damage from Bone Crusher Giant pretty much as long as you want. Well, Peter will have the play here. Josh doing a little bit of mulling. So far, looks like just blue-red. Could just be Izzet Delver. Brazen Borrower does a little bit of the work that Oko did. Nowhere near as well, I'm not going to lie. Oko was incredibly strong. Of course, it did pull you into 3 colors. I suppose you could run a blue-green Delver, though that wasn't very common. You're pretty much always going to want some type of removal for a tempo strategy, so going into either red for the lightning bolt plan or black for multiple different directions that you could go. Daze, hard cast on Young Pyromancer, and that makes you want to daze back if you can when they tap out for a daze, but not able to. And now to Fury. Wow. So I don't know if he drew that daze or not, but that is some discipline right there, not fighting over the Young Pyromancer, and instead having the daze to stop the devastating 3-drop. And now Young Pyromancer on board and potentially unchecked. There's only a few cards that'll interact, and that is actually one of them, Thought Lash. There's not a whole lot to stop Young Pyromancer from going super wide and doing a ton of damage, except, Thought Lash happens to be a combo piece that can prevent damage. Now, if Peter has Thassa's Oracle already, then this is pretty much over. Josh pondering. Got some Pokemon cards as elementals. We'll see if he's got other legendary birds, perhaps. Starting with Zapdos. Interesting choice. I mean, he was the first one printed. You'd think you'd go with Articuno first. Uno Dos Trace for those who never picked up on that. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. And Brazen Borrower gets stopped by Daze. Oh no. Wasteland takes out the white mana, so not currently threatening to Fury to kind of put the shields up. And at this point, Peter's just digging for a Thassa's Oracle. And of course, it needs to resolve. But if it does resolve, that library will just go away in the blink of an eye. For more damage prevented. Now remember, this Thought Lash impulse gets spell snared. Ooh, that's interesting. Spell Snare is a super high value card here, but to be fair, it's not just Thassa's Oracle. There's also Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, so probably correct to Spell Pierce there. If Impulse turned into a Jace, that certainly would have been much worse. However, it would still be floating around in the deck. More damage being prevented. His life total is just continuing to be maintained, but the library, as a stand-in for it, is dissipating. Now, granted, 50-something life, or 40-something life when you have a Thought Lash out. That's how it ends up kind of functionally playing out. Peter needs a win condition, and he also needs it to resolve. There's a Jace, Wielder of Mysteries going by. He would have liked to have that one. Looking at his graveyard, perhaps meaning that Paradigm Shift is available, and it is. Force of Negation. And I'm not sure what this paradigm shift does. I don't recall what was in the graveyard that actually would have been helpful. I guess the counter magic. So Thassa's Oracle now being jammed. We do have a Moltres. Josh thinking this through, perhaps thinking of where things all went wrong, or perhaps how best to employ his counter magic in this situation. If this resolves, it's a bad scene. Now, if he has access to Stifle, he's going to want Peter to exile his entire library and then respond by stifling the Thassa's trigger. Oh no. That's not where we want to be. That is not where we want to be. So what you want to do there is just let the Thassa's Oracle trigger resolve, because it will not win the game. Or if they exile their library, then you stifle before it resolves. So little detail there. Peter might get this one. That would be super unfortunate. And he can let this Thought Lash go at any point. Just a Hail Mary. Try and get the win in the remaining cards. Down to 7. Another Thought Lash. Pyroblast stops that. And we do have Articuno joining in the mix as well, for those who were concerned if all the legendary birds were going to arrive. And now Peter's down to 4. And all of these elemental tokens, these Pokemons, turning sideways, along with the young Pyromancer. Thought Lash did a lot of preventing, but this is gonna do. Is he actually able to survive that? He blocks the young Pyromancer. Oh, wow. Down to 1. And the last card is an island. That would have been absolutely savage if it was another Thassa's Oracle or a Jace Wielder of Mysteries, but that is not the case, as Josh takes this one down in 2. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.